In a recent video, we talked about the upcoming January transfer window. We talked about player sales being a key factor in West Ham being able to do some business in the new year. I'm always a little bit hesitant when it comes to West Ham in January. I've got to be honest, just because I just feel that we tend to fail. We're not very good at it. We're reluctant to do it for a start, to do business, which I get because of the pricing, but it always feels like we do miss opportunities, etc. when it comes to January. I'm never really that confident when it comes to this period of the year. And I always think that if a club's spending big mid-season, it's usually either one or two things. They're striving to achieve something, so they want to pay the extra bit of money to get it, or they're trying to get themselves out of a jam. And I think for the West Ham situation, it's the latter. We're trying and recover this season as best as we can. Before getting to the video, though, I want to say if you're new to the channel, do subscribe. It's free to do so. It takes 2 seconds. It does help us grow. We really do appreciate it. And of course, hit that like button because, again, that really does help us out and helps the channel to grow and to reach new people. So we really do appreciate it. So please do that if you can. So we've got big news out today, and it's surrounding Mohammed Kudus. I talked about this in that video I was referring to regarding January. I referred to this in terms of him and saying that he would possibly be a player that the club may look to cash in on, possibly, because if West Ham are to raise funds in January, which is not going to be easy, let's be honest, mid-season is never a good time to be doing business. It's not ideal. It just isn't, generally. Whether you're buying or selling, it's not great. But West Ham, because of the spend-up that we had in the summer, we haven't got a lot of loose money. We don't have money in the back pocket to spend mid-season. We don't have a great deal of it. So the club would have to start offloading players to fund the moves that we want to make. Now, I did talk about Kudus. I did say that Kudus is a likely is an option, not a likely one, an option, because of the fact that he's likely to go in the summer anyway, as we know he's got that £85 million release clause. So would the club want to cash in mid-season? I dismissed it pretty quickly. I sort of thought I doubt the club would sell Kudus mid-season. Don't think it would send the right message. That is all changed today, completely all changed. We've had a big update from EXWHUEMPLOYEE. It also came from Sean Whetstone as well. This is the update from X. The club have responded to rumours of Arsenal, Newcastle, and Liverpool wanting to sign Mohammed Kudus. This is in January, not the end of the season, in January. With this statement, now this has come from David Sullivan. Okay, this is very, very top. We have had no bid. Okay, fine. I wouldn't expect them to be bidding now anyway, because it's not even January. We could do with a top-class centre-forward, and we need to raise funds, as we talked about. We would want 100 million for Kudus. I'm not going to go into the rest of it at the moment. I'll come back to that in a little bit. I mean, I'm very mixed minds about this. I really am. The first one that is the obvious one, as a West Ham fan, you don't want to hear that your best players are up for sale or going to be leaving. So I totally get that there will be a reluctance from the fan base and probably a disheartenment around that news that West Ham are looking to offload Mohammed Kudus in January. However, I've always maintained this throughout ever being a West Ham fan, ever since I was young, and I've always maintained it, that if you've got a player that doesn't really want to be at the club, I don't really want them. I don't care how good they are. If they don't really want to be at West Ham, I don't want them. I'd rather them go. I only want players that want to be at West Ham. And I think sometimes that's the problem you get when you adopt a model that we talked about this as well regarding, like the Brighton model, where they pick out these gems for a smaller fee. They thrive and they flog them on. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand that model and I get it. And this deal, if West Ham, let's just say, for argument's sake, at the moment, West Ham are to sell Kudus for 100 million in January, I don't think that's going to happen for that fee. I'll come back to that. But if West Ham are to do that, then it's an unbelievable piece of business, isn't it? If you bought a player for 50 million quid and then 2 years later, or less than a year and a half later, you sold him for double the amount. That's incredible business. So let's get that straight. So if West Ham are to start adopting the model of Brighton's, etc., of going to keep building and building, but you're going to have to offload these players to keep funding that, then this is what it's about. Then there can't be too much of an argument that this is a really clever piece of business. However, I'm sure you might well feel like me. is that you don't want to see your best players leave. It's not a good advert for the club. It doesn't feel good, does it? Especially if you're bloody selling him to the likes of Arsenal. I really don't want him to go there because it just feels, they've just done a deal with him for Rice. The last thing we want to do is see another good player go over to Arsenal. So there's sort of two sides to it. You've got the business side, which is an absolute big tick. And then you've got the sort of like the pride of being a West Ham fan and you're having your best players. You don't want to see your best players leave. So I totally get that there's two sides to this. And I'm very much feeling both. Okay. But as I say, my feeling is that if Kudus doesn't really want to be at West Ham, and I'm not suggesting that he definitely doesn't. He hasn't made a statement that he wants to leave. But I think we've always known, much like Edson Alvarez, this feels like a stopgap move. It feels like a stepping stone move for them, like to go, right, I want to go here. I want to get in the Premier League. I want to do well. And then I want my move. We've already known that Edson Alvarez has already flirted with the idea of going to Manchester United not too long ago. So I get the feeling he's a similar kind of character that he'll probably be saying to his agent, look, if I get a better move, I want to go. And I get the feeling that's where we are with Kudus. So I get the feeling that he is a player that's ambitious, and I get it. He's a quality footballer and wants to move on. And I can't blame him. I really can't blame him. Can you really? I mean, at the end of the day, he's not a West Ham fan, is he? He ain't sat there as a kid dreaming of playing for West Ham. He's in the Premier League where he wants to be, and he's got an opportunity now to go and play. Let's say Arsenal. Can you really blame him? Can you really say, like, I'd much rather be at West Ham, 14th in the Premier League, or go and play trying to challenge for a title? I get it. I do understand it. But, it still hurts, doesn't it? Let's be honest. It would be painful to see another player of ours of that quality go into Arsenal. It would make us feel like we are, they are far the superior club and they come and get our players. But look, if this is the model we want to adopt, if we want to build and keep this kind of Brighton-esque model going forward, then this is the way it goes, unfortunately. It's part and parcel of it. And I've got to say, I don't think he'll go for 100 million, by the way. I think that's a West Ham putting the price up. That's what he is, £100 million, no less. He ain't going to go for £100 million. I don't think he's a £100 million player. I really don't. I think if West Ham get 85 million for him, that's really good return on Kudus. That's my personal opinion. People might slate me on this video and say that's ridiculous. I don't think I think that is probably the most he's worth, genuinely. And I don't mean that, I don't get me wrong. He is a stunning footballer, Kudus. He really is. And, we saw the other night, against Bournemouth, how effective he can be. He's a wonderful player. There's no two ways about it. But I would say I don't think he's the most consistent. He's not a player that's going to be bagging you 30 goals a season, 25, 30 goals a season. He's not going to be at that level all the time. Sometimes he drops. I think sometimes he shows a frustration and a bit of, he doesn't let it get to him. That's my only gripe with him. But don't get me wrong, a wonderful footballer. But what it does mean as well, which is what we've talked about, is that West Ham are going to be busy. This January is going to be a really busy January for West Ham, which is weird and very unheard of for West Ham. We very rarely do it. We might sometimes buy the odd player or do the odd loan deal or something like that. But this feels big this time around. It feels like West Ham are in the market for a fair few players. We're going to do another video tomorrow regarding targets and certain players we could bring in. This is purely about Kudus, really. But I'm quite stunned, actually. I'm pretty surprised. I didn't expect David Sullivan or, the top source to come forward and say that openly, because this is going to go everywhere. He'll be very aware that we're talking about it. He'll know that this video will be, I'm sure he'll be aware of it. Amos Chat and all the others will be talking about it, and it'll be all over the websites, etc., like it is on ours already, westhamway.com. Go and check that out. It gives you a bit more detail on there. So my point is that there's clearly a desire to sell Kudus. And I get it. I actually do get it. I'm actually more leaning towards the idea of going, well, okay, I'm actually okay with it. Which seems strange considering we're midway through a season that's not going great. And he's one of our best players. I'm not denying that. But I do feel that one aspect that's making me feel okay about this is because one, I think he wants to go. So that immediately makes me go, we'll go then. I'd rather just get a deal and get it sorted. And two, I think that there's other priority positions in this football club. I actually think to myself, when I think about West Ham's team, there's stuff that we can do here and fund it. If we could sell Kudus for, let's say 85, 90 million quid, say, right? That is a hefty amount of money in it. That is a big amount of money. And if we can get it done early in the window, let's just say he does go in January, and then we've got a few weeks to get our, ducks in order and get some players in that are going to spearhead us and get us in a better position. I'm all for it. I'm going to be honest with you. I remember I referred to this a while ago. I remember years ago when Julian Dix went away. We sold Julian Dix to Liverpool. This is like 93 or 94. We're talking a while ago now. And Dix was the best player at West Ham by quite a distance. He was a left back, but he was by far our best player. And we were in a relegation battle. I'm pretty sure we had Harry Redknapp in charge then. I don't think it was Billy Bonds days. I think Redknapp was in charge. Redknapp was in charge. And I remember we sold Julian Dix midway through the season, and we sold him to Liverpool, and we got 2 players in return. We got David Burrows and Mike Marsh, and we were such a better team. We were such a better team for that move because we got decent left back in. He wasn't Dix's level, Burrows, but he weren't a bad left back. He was decent, and we got a good midfielder in Marsh, which is what we needed, a bit of creativity, and it just made all the difference. And that's what I kind of feel like with this Kudus move. It's almost like he's like a luxury player at the moment for West Ham. It's almost like great having him, but could we utilise his money and say get a replacement in for him that's not going to be his level quite, but not bad, a good replacement, and then go and get a good striker? Then I'd think, actually, this has probably worked out better for us. So that's just my feeling. I know I'm going to get some comments on this saying I'm a dick and I don't know what I'm talking about, but that's my feeling on it. I actually think that although it's never good to see a good player go, of course, you don't really want to, of course, you don't want to see your best players leave. I think in the grand scheme of it, I think this actually would be a wise move for West Ham if we're going to go and do the right business in January. But I don't want to go to Arsenal. That's the only problem. Liverpool and Newcastle, I've got no real issue with. I just really don't hope he doesn't go Arsenal. But let's be honest, I do think they're the front runners, and I kind of understand why he'd prefer the move there. The fact that they're title chasing and obviously link up with Rice again, etc. So it's. Yeah, a bit of a painful one. I get it. I do understand it's a little bit of a blow. It's probably not good news, but I'm trying to lean really much on the side of optimism here, and I'm not trying to force myself to. I actually do feel quite optimistic about it. I think if West Ham can get this right this January, because it does seem like it's going to be a big window for us now, then selling Kudus for that kind of money and making that level of profit, I don't think it's a bad deal at all. Let's wait and see how it pans out. As I say, video tomorrow, we're going to talk about targets and other bits and pieces then. But until then, come on your irons.